The views expressed on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast are that of Jerry Cahill and guests, and not necessarily those of the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Nothing on the Jerry Cahill CF podcast should be considered medical advice. Such advice can only be given by a physician who is experienced with cystic fibrosis. The Boomer Esiason Foundation, Jerry Cahill and guests cannot be held responsible for any damage which may result from using the information on this podcast without the permission of your medical doctor. You're listening to the Jerry Cahill CF podcast presented by the Boomer Esiason Foundation and jerrycahill.com.
Welcome to Jerry Cahill's CF Unmasked podcast series. In a world where everyone wears a mask, it's nice to see a soul. This show, CF, the donor family, donating the gift of life, was made possible through an unrestricted educational grant from the Allergan Foundation to the Boomer Esiason Foundation. Today you will meet Dre Crist, born and raised in Central Illinois and currently living in Clayton, North Carolina. Gia lost her son Dre at 11 years old due to intestinal issues and decided to donate his organs.
Hi, my name is Gia. I'm a mother of 3 boys. The oldest is 19. His name is Riley. And then Dragan, who we refer to as Dre, he would be 14 right now. He passed away when he was 11. And then I have Jace, and he is now 11, and I'm married to my husband, Casey. I grew up in Central Illinois all of my life up until the past couple of years, and now I'm living in the Raleigh, North Carolina area. Our little town of Pawnee that we lived in, there's a population of 2,300, so everyone knew everyone. Everyone really took care of each other. When Dre passed, I remember the teachers and people from our church and other people from the community bringing us meals for, it had to be over a month. I can remember in the funeral procession, the whole high school football team kneeled in the rain as everyone drove by. And I mean, they had to be out there at least a good hour kneeling in the rain because there were so many cars. Yeah, that's just the community that we lived in. And it was very hard to leave that. Dre was just naturally a very friendly, well-behaved, not the norm type of child.
Hello everybody, it's Dre Crist. No, it's really, hello everybody, it's Dr. Dre.
I remember getting calls from his teachers. One in specific that I remember, she called and I thought, why is Dre's teacher calling? He never gets in trouble, he never misbehaves. I rarely ever had to discipline him. His teacher said, I just wanted to let you know there was a classmate of Dre's that was being bullied and picked on today. And Dre stepped right in and held up for that boy and helped him out. There was a call that I got from his teacher one year, you need to come to the awards assembly next month, Dre's getting the character award. So he was just always very helpful, wanted to just make sure everybody was happy and do anything he could to help anyone. So Dre was 11 years old and he had intestinal malrotation. I learned that that's something that happens in the womb. The intestine just isn't formed properly as it should be. It's something that when someone does have it, it usually presents symptoms in infancy when they're very young. So the fact that Dre lived to be 11 years old with no symptoms was very rare. When I was in labor with Dre, his heartbeat kept stopping every time I would have a contraction. I had to have an emergency C-section and we weren't sure he was going to make it. I feel like that was God's way of telling me, hold on to him a little bit closer because you're not going to have him long. And so we were very close. And you know, as a mother, you love all of your children the same, but it was a little bit different with Dre. His personality, he was very loving and he wanted to be close. He liked to be held. And I think that was just God's way of letting me get my time with him while I could. We had went to a pumpkin patch. It was October, it was fall. That was on a Sunday. That evening late, he told me he wasn't feeling well. He was having a little pain in his tummy. And then the next day he had vomited a couple times and was a little bit lethargic, kind of laying around like you do when you have the flu. But then later that evening, pretty late into the evening, he all of a sudden said, "Mom, I'm hearing voices in my head." And at that minute, I knew something wasn't right. So I'm rushing to throw clothes on him to get him into the car to take him to like prompt care or the emergency room. And as soon as I get him out of his room, he collapses. As soon as he collapsed, we're calling 911, to get an ambulance there to take him to the hospital. At this point, we have no clue what's going on, what caused this, what's happening. The ambulance comes and takes him, and I follow behind in the car. And as soon as I get to the hospital, they tell me that his heart stopped beating and he stopped breathing in the ambulance. Later, the physician told me that was in the emergency room that night that after a full body scan, they found the intestine. It was strangulated because of the malrotation. The strangulation caused the bowel to perforate, which of course released toxins into his body, and that's what caused him to collapse. It's very difficult to live your life after losing a child, because not only does it impact me as a mother, impacts my husband, my other 2 children, watching them, suffer through this. It's been very difficult. You take it day by day. You're there for each other. But one of the things that's helped me the most is knowing that he saved 4 people. And I've been able to hear from 2 of those people. And just knowing that their loved ones still have them and they have a better quality of life now, sometimes that's all that keeps me going. There's really 2 reasons that I immediately knew I wanted to donate his organs. One reason is because of the type of person Dre was, and he always wanted to help everyone. I knew that's exactly what he would want. And the second reason was if I could save anyone from going through what I was going through. We knew what it felt like to not have our baby with us anymore. Why put another parent through that? I received a letter from Auburn. She had received Dre's lungs. I got the letter not quite a year after Dre had passed, and it was one of the most beautiful letters. It was like she knew exactly what to say. She knew exactly what I needed to hear. I really got to hear exactly how Dre's lungs impacted her and improved her life. After receiving Auburn's letter, I definitely wanted to write back to her. So I wanted her to know about Dre, but I also wanted her to be able to find me if she wanted to. We were not allowed to put last names or the name of our city in the letter, but I knew with his name being so rare, if I put his name and then my name is also rare, especially with the spelling, that she could search that information online and find his obituary. And I knew if she found his obituary, she could probably find me, and she did. She did some digging and she found that obituary, and then she found me on Facebook, and all of a sudden I get a Facebook message from her, which I can't even describe how incredible that was. Then we start talking a little bit about her surgery, and she mentioned Duke Hospital, and it hit me. I said, "You don't have to tell me this, but do you live in North Carolina?" 3 days prior to her reaching out to me, I had a very big decision to make. My employer had offered me a position here in North Carolina, which is a big move for me. I had always lived in Central Illinois, small town girl. I even went out to Dre's grave, that 3 days prior, and I said, "Buddy, give me some kind of sign. What should Mom do?" And that was my sign. When she said she lived in North Carolina, it doesn't get any clearer. This is where God wanted me to be. I was very nervous to meet Auburn, and she had her mother with her. I don't remember eating much at dinner, but we talked and talked. I don't know exactly how long we sat at that table, but I think it was a good couple of hours. Auburn lives a few hours away from me, and we get together quite often, at least a few times a year. I've been to her house for Christmas. We've celebrated Dre's birthday together. We've gone out on the lake together. She took me on my first jet ski ride ever. I would definitely recommend organ donation to anyone who loses a loved one. It's hard for me to understand why someone would not donate organs. Not donating those organs is not going to bring your loved one back. why would you not want to save someone else from going through what you're experiencing? Think of how that family will feel if they get to keep their loved one, and think of how much better that person's life will be once they get that organ that they so desperately need.
Stay tuned for part 2 next week with Auburn, the donor recipient.